Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Recovery Houston. Yay! So we're back doing podcasts again. I know I posted on the page. Lucas came early, so that's why we did not have a podcast last week. And a big thank you to everyone that's been very supportive over the last week and all the Facebook messages and stuff. It's really been sweet. So today I'm excited. This is my good friend, Miss Libby, and she is going to share her story with us. And I've actually never heard her whole story before, so I'm excited to get to hear it. And with that, Libby, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Libby. I'm an alcoholic. I want to congratulate Ashley and Daniel on the birth of their beautiful baby. Thanks for all your prayers, people. So my sobriety date is 7/1/2012. And of course, without my higher power, that would not be possible. I grew up in a relatively normal home. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot. And as kind of probably a result of that, I had to make friends every 4 years. And I was tall and lanky and just did not fit in elementary and junior high. But it was a great upbringing. My parents were very active in the Presbyterian church, and we went to Sunday school. We did they weren't missionaries, but they worked with some of the missionary people, and I learned a lot about God's grace and mercy. And, that stuck with me a lot. And then, of course, sometimes it didn't. We get away from God when we start using our self-will. So just about a little background things. Mental illness and alcoholism, drug abuse run in the family. My grandmother had some mental issues. I don't know if it was because she had 3 sons and a grandson in Vietnam, basically all at the same time. She was an alcoholic, in recovery at the end, but not really, probably because of my mom. But and then an uncle and an aunt, my dad's siblings, one of whom died from the disease, and it was pretty rough. And then her kids and a lot of the cousins. I'm no one to say anyone's an alcoholic or an addict. I know it's a self-diagnosed disease, but I think there's a lot of abuse that's gone on. My family as well. So yeah, I believe there's a lot of genetics involved in this disease, and it's unfortunate. But my kids, one has it, one doesn't. And I just want to say that I started drinking when I was 12. We moved to Germany when I was 12.
Oh, and that's just, you can drink everywhere over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're old enough to put your money on the bar, you're pretty much okay to drink beer. Now, they wouldn't always sell us the hard liquor, but I was really tall. I looked like I was 16 when I was 12. And so, but we had a lot of fun. It was really fun. But it was kind of dangerous, too, because we would have to leave the Air Force Base, and there were 3 towns outside of the base. And we had our little bars in each one. And so we'd go and we'd drink, and then we'd go to the AYA, was what it was called, American Youth Association, and on weekends they would have dances and bands. Sometimes, most of the time, it was a DJ, and we'd sober up and go home, But and we did a lot of fun things with a lot of fun families, skiing and traveling Europe and just great things. Now, of course, unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of the names of things, the beautiful places I've seen. I can't just look at a picture and go, oh yeah, that's such and such, Oh, that's the Parthenon. That's, the Colosseum, the big things. Yeah, but some of the smaller, wonderful things that I've seen, I don't remember the names of them. So we got back from Germany in 1972, and we moved to a place called Plattsburgh, New York. And there's this book that I read, and the guy who wrote it, his story starts out, and then the first paragraph, Plattsburgh, New York, is mentioned. So when I read that, I thought, wow, that's already one thing in common. I have. Because at the time, in the 70s, Plattsburgh, New York supposedly had the largest beer consumption per capita of any city in the United States. And it's a college town, too. So
well, and in New York, they sell 30 packs. They're called cubes. Like
well, they used to sell them here,
beer.
I think. I think they used to sell them here.
So when I lived in New York,
Or maybe
I was like, what, you can get 30 at one time? Okay.
Where in New York?
I stayed in Syracuse
Uh-huh.
for like 30 days, and I was just like...
It's north of there. I was
Like,
24 miles
everywhere.
from the Canadian border.
Oh, wow.
And I had a friend who was 18 in our senior year. He had already turned 18 because there was some kind of beer you could go to Canada and get, and you could only bring back a certain amount per person in the car, and they never checked your age. So he'd load up the car, and we'd go and we'd get all this beer. And when I moved back from Germany, I was like, this American beer is not the same.
It's different.
But, so we only lived there for 2 years, and then I came to Texas to go to school in San Marcos, which is, of course, Texas's big party town school. And I just loved it there. It was beautiful, and I didn't do so well in school. My daddy was paying out-of-state tuition, so that was a big deal. So after about a semester and a half, I quit, and I got a job. And that was the first job I ever had, and the first job I ever got fired from because I couldn't get to work on time. And we always joke about I didn't get a degree, but I got my MRS degree, Mrs. That's where I met my husband. And, we partied. We had so much fun. But to tell you the truth, I don't remember a lot of things from there. I mean, faces are blurs. I mean, the memory part, that's really sad part of this disease, And so, I was a pretty much daily drinker, pot smoker, whatever else there was, just about I would do. And I won't go into the gory details. There are some that were pretty bad. Mm. And but I didn't have consequences. I was one of those lucky people that I just never got caught. I didn't have a car, so at that time in college, I didn't have to worry about DWIs. But my friends got them, and I don't know. I think that my higher power was watching out for me. And then we got married in 81, and my firstborn was born in 85, and I was able to pretty much stop drinking. Now, I will say I probably smoked a little weed, and anyway, it wasn't super hard, but then again, I don't really remember a lot. And then I had my second child in 88, and they had a pretty relatively normal childhood. We still continued to party, and I finally quit smoking pot because it made me paranoid. And my kids started getting older, and it was illegal. It's still illegal here. And so I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I just stuck with alcohol and pills if I could get them. I wasn't a doctor shopper. I know a lot of people can take 30 narco in 3 days and live to tell about it. No, I don't think I would have been one of those. But, I just continued to drink a lot of wine and vodka. When my kids got older, when my kids were young, we took them to Sunday school. They got confirmed in the Methodist church, and I did some Bible studies here and there. So I still had God in my life. I still had my higher power, and, then I'd let him go. I'd close that door. And then I'd open it, open, close. So, as soon as my daughter, the summer before my daughter's senior year, my oldest had a horrific accident with a gun and has a bullet in his frontal lobe. And that was a pivotal point in my life as far as my disease. I used alcohol for everything that I could, to self-medicate, for anything and everything. It didn't matter if it was good or bad. The alcohol was on. And I didn't know how to deal with things. I thought, at first it was, is he going to live or die? Then it was, is he going to be able to walk or talk? Then it was, is he ever going to be able to live on his own? And then, boom, things changed, and I learned a little bit more about the disease of addiction and alcoholism. And that might sound cryptic, but he's one of us, and so that's okay. I always joke about, there's a prayer that a lot of people in recovery say, and it's the third step prayer. It's called the third step prayer. And he had to have help memorizing it one time. And so I wasn't sober. I didn't plan on getting sober, but I helped him memorize that prayer. And so when I finally decided to get sober, I thought, man, I got this. I already know this prayer. I thought I was hot shit, No, I had to break that thing down and read it repeatedly over and over and replace certain words, like turn my self-will and my unmanageable life over. Because by that time in 2012, things were just not very good. At home, they weren't good. Things were just really out of control, not just in my life, but in the whole home. And I had been keeping my grandchild the year before, my firstborn granddaughter. I kept her the first year of her life. And after she turned a year, my daughter stopped working and was going to keep her. But I kind of feel like if I had not stopped drinking when I did, I wouldn't really be part of my granddaughter's life. So I always tell my Lily cat that she is one of those people that helped save my life. She was almost a year when I got sober. I mean, she was a little over a year when I got sober. Her birthday's in April. I got sober in June. So, yeah, I've given her certain medallions, and she's just that little apple of my eye. I just love her. Your first grandchild ever, and it's just, they're just so fun. So I don't know. Things just were crazy. I don't know. I was drinking probably a little more than a big bottle of wine a day, and some vodka if there was some in the freezer. Sometimes I would leave the house if there was no other alcohol and I wasn't quite done. I'd leave and go to the bar up the street. And one or two times, not too often, but my husband would show up and just take me home, and I wouldn't remember and wake up and where's my car? Oh yeah, it's probably at a bar, and then I'd have to remember which bar to go to, and usually have to pick up the credit card too because I'd forget to cash that out. But I never was banned from bars or anything. I was a pretty mild drunk. I didn't do too many crazy things. But the blackouts were the worst part for me.
Yeah, that was mine. And I didn't even drink every day, but on the weekends when I drank, it's like I was making up for the whole rest of the week that I couldn't go out and drink. I was a blackout drunk every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
See, and now that when I look back on my drinking career starting at age 12, there's a couple of things that stick out in mind. Like when we went, a bunch of us went to Oktoberfest in Germany. And we stayed at the University of Maryland, where my sister was in school. They had a campus in Munich. And I made it from wherever Oktoberfest was back to the campus by myself and didn't know, because I had gotten pissed off and left. I didn't know that. I didn't remember. They couldn't believe I made it back on my own. So, that I was 14, but still that blackout behavior continued, and it got worse. It definitely got worse. And then the last time I drank alcohol was at a friend of ours. It's her son-in-law now, his 30th birthday, and here I am, 52 years old, right? Partying with the 30-year-olds. Yep. Drinking those, what did they call them? Peppermint patties or whatever, where they shoot the whipped cream and the chocolate syrup and on top of a peppermint schnapps, and that was, of course, on top of all of the wine. Well, a whole bunch of stuff happened, and I don't remember how I got home. All I remember is waking up in the morning going, what does a broken collarbone feel like? And I knew that some stuff had gone down that I had a part in, and I'd been on the phone texting, and I just knew that I'd probably said some things, and I had to make some apologies, and everything was okay with them. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it was pretty bad. And so I ended up taking myself to urgent care that day because nobody else wanted to deal with me. And so I went, and it was kind of funny because the guy in line behind me was at the same party, and he was there for his shoulder as well, from a different, leaving that party, going to another, and getting in a fight. And I was like, well, aren't we a pair? And it ended up that my AC ligament in my shoulder was gone, completely disconnected from my shoulder. So my collarbone wasn't broken, it was just hanging there. And they told me, we normally don't do surgeries for injuries like this, but yours is torn off, completely torn off. And they said, what did you do? And I was like, to tell you the truth, I don't really remember, And so that was kind of the first time I had to admit that drinking was a problem to a doctor, Because you know how you always, how much do you drink? Oh, once or twice a week, I was one of those that lied about it. So it ended up I had to have surgery, and that was on a Sunday. And so they told me, yeah, you need to see an orthopedic. So I went to an orthopedic on Monday, and I went, and they said the same thing. You have to have surgery. It's not pretty, but we can fix it with a cadaver ligament. So I was like, oh, great. But then from there, I ended up at a 12-step meeting. I knew where to go. I don't remember going. I don't remember driving there. I got there. I went in, and I just, vomited all kinds of stuff, Wah, 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 But I did get some phone numbers, and I got a sponsor before I had my surgery because I was still on pain medication. And I knew that counted, And my sponsor, she always says, pot counts. So I knew that Vicodin probably counted too. So, I got into recovery. That was my big bottom, right? Big deal, right? Well, it was for me. I drank and drugged for 40 years straight. And when I got to recovery, I learned a lot of things. I learned how unmanageable my life was because it was run on self-will and not God's will. And thank God for my parents because I had a power greater than myself already. And I knew that God's grace and mercy was there for me. And that all I had to do was open my heart. And then, then the work had to start. I had to do that moral inventory.
And which is so much fun to do. Everyone loves it so much.
Well, I have a great sponsor, We made it fun. It was just, I really had no preconception of it. I'd never been to any 12-step classes.
Yeah.
Meetings. And so I didn't know really what it was about at all. I didn't know it was about trusting God and cleaning house and helping other people. So it was pretty easy for me. And I did it. It took me about a year. My mom had some heart surgery. I had to go home and take care of my dad. He was already kind of going downhill. But things really started to look better for me. I started to feel better about myself. I still had a lot of problems at home, though, and with family members. And the good part is that I had a whole group of people that were there to help me with that. And I had a God, again. And my sponsor told me I could yell at God if I wanted to. And
that's funny. I had to tell one of my sponsees that not that long ago. It's okay. You can just go yell and be mad. It's okay.
Yeah.
Get it out of your system already.
Well, and I was talking about my parents. When my son was on death's door, I blamed God. And my mama, she was like, "Wait a minute. God does not punish you like this. God does not punish parents by hurting their children. That just doesn't, whatever happened was because he was not in God's will. He was in his own will." And that made sense, not at the time, but it made sense later. I heard someone say something similar, and it just made me realize how much how much time I wasted being angry about things I couldn't change. And so, moving along, after I worked all of my steps, then of course I got to help other people. And that's where the joy comes in, is seeing those people work the steps and then help other people. Mm-hmm. And for me, of course, I know we all have that experience that you give someone your number and call me, and they never call.
Yeah.
Well, I stayed sober. I didn't drink over that, But I've seen a lot of people die from this disease, and
there's been a lot just this year.
Yeah.
So many.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, holy cow.
Well, and not just dying. I've seen a lot of other consequences come out of that I didn't really know before were related to alcohol and drugs. But I will say that, the recovery community in Houston is amazing. We have so many resources for people. I know you've done a lot of work promoting different places. Mm-hmm. And And I use those a lot of times to help other people. It's really an awesome thing. And I'm happy to say that my loved one just got a year sober. And you guys were a pivotal part of that. I do know that.
We missed it thanks to Lucas.
That's okay. We're glad Lucas is good. Yeah.
I kept telling nurses, I was like, I'm supposed to be in Austin right now. Like, this is not supposed to be happening.
But that was an amazing adventure for me to go. That was one of my first live meetings since COVID. I did go to my birthday meeting.
Okay.
But that was the only one. And then I went to the one in Austin, which was super socially distanced, and they were so well behaved, and it was a beautiful thing. And to see my loved one get a chip, and things were so different this time, you know, the steps were worked, you know, and that third step prayer that we learned so many years before, you know, those are one of those things that I still say every day. That, and, you know, my 7th step prayer and the serenity prayer, and, you know, I have to do that for me. I have to do that because I have a disease, and that is my medicine. It's just like if you have blood pressure problems, you have to take blood pressure medicine, you know. I mean, it's a spiritual, mental, and physical disease, and we have to treat all the aspects. And if we don't, you know, we might not drink, but we're still not sober, you know. You guys have heard the term dry drunks, and I know a lot of dry drunks. I have my sister's husband, I think he's a dry drunk. What can I say? But I just, you know, he may not be now, but when I first met him, he was. And people get mean. They get mean again, and old behavior, you know. Mm-hmm. Is it still old behavior? You know, if you're sober, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I think that's a big misconception, right? People think like, oh, I'll just not use, right? And maybe I'll go to some meetings or something while I'm not using. Mm-hmm. And then I can kind of just like, you know, fall off and just maybe not go to meetings and do stuff and just not use. And it's like, no, if you're still an asshole, like, yeah, recovery is about changing your whole, like, your behaviors and your thought patterns and, like, working with others. Like, if I was that, I've just seen some people, like, and if I was as miserable as them, right, sober, I might as well just be using.
Exactly.
Like, seriously.
And I know there's some cases where people have mental disorders, just like it says, that they need extra help. And actually, I was one of those. I recently did, with a wonderful therapist, I finally bit the bullet because I knew that something needed to change, because I'm still having horrible anxiety, and it was PTSD over the accident with my child. When I would picture that first day in the emergency room, you know, my heart rate would be skyrocketing. And so I did what's called EMDR with the buzzing or the tapping. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like your brain processes things, and there's channels, and it just ends up working itself out. And so COVID happened, and we didn't get to close the circle on all of that. But then we had a phone conversation, and we did like the little test on PTSD. And there's like in her test, there's like if you have a 50 or above, whatever, then you definitely have PTSD. Well, so when I started, I was kind of off the chart on it. Well, when we did this test the second time, guess what my score was?
Was it below 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it below 20?
Was it?
Yes. It was a 17. And so, you know, getting outside help for other things that may have caused you to self-medicate are super important. Yeah. I agree. I believe
I'm a big advocate for that.
recovery,
Seriously.
for sure.
Big advocate for that.
Yeah.
I tell a lot of the girls that I work with, like, it's okay to, like, see a therapist and do other things. Like,
It is.
it's okay.
It is. And, I used to do yoga a lot. And then when I started working, it's like I didn't have time. And I so miss it. And I
need to get into yoga. Like, so many people that have been on this podcast are, like, super into
TV.
yoga and stuff. And I'm
get the,
yoga.
your remote and you go to, the apps and you can get a yoga. You can do it by yourself. I prefer to do yoga by myself. Now, the first yoga teacher I had was awesome. She just was so cool, young and so spiritual and just so cute. And, she would come around and she'd help position you and everything. So that was an awesome experience. But yeah, things like yoga and all kinds of group, I've done group therapies with family members and, one of my things was, I promised that I would go to Al-Anon, another program, and I did it. And it made a huge difference on me, not on anybody else. It didn't help anybody else. It helped me because I know that I do not have control over anybody but me, and my perspective had to change. So much of it is about perspective as well. And, today in 2020, this is just a crazy time right now. And people, they're either trying to get sober or they're falling off right and left. It's just amazing. I can't even explain it because I know that so many people got and stayed sober in 2020, and I know people that had 10 plus years and have gone out.
Do you think that's because there's been a lack of, like, personal contact with meetings and stuff, right?
Isolation.
We only have, like, Zoom and, I mean, you can get alcohol delivered to your house now, which you couldn't before. You had to risk it. You know what I mean? You had to go to HEB or somewhere else and risk maybe being seen or found out, and now you can just have it DoorDash. Like,
we might as well live in New Orleans.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I got so mad when that was passed. I was just like,
I couldn't believe it either.
Like,
I thought it was weird.
We cannot be in a place where we can have meetings, but now we can have alcohol delivered. Like,
no,
maybe we
I
shouldn't
didn't
work
like
that
that
way.
either.
Yeah, I was pretty
But
upset.
that's one of those things where we don't have to participate in that kind of behavior. We don't have to order that liquor,
right?
We don't have to, and my thing too is I've learned a lot about judgment, throughout recovery. I've learned how not to judge people and how not to, believe everything I read and see unless I actually see it live in a room or whatever, not because things can be photoshopped. And
Yeah, I used to tell the girls, I'm like, if you didn't see it with your own eyes and you didn't hear it with your own ears, you probably shouldn't believe it because you don't know sometimes.
There's this thing called subjective and objective. So, I have to be careful a lot of times too, and I have some family members who are we're at complete opposite ends of so many issues that are going on right now. And I have to choose to stay out of it because I'm told that in my book that I read that, we cannot get involved in the state of the nation.
Yeah.
Because we're liable to drink. And I don't ever want to drink again. And I feel like the desire to drink was removed from me pretty much when I walked in those doors of that meeting. And especially after working those steps and having those promises come true for me. The first thing that came true for me was knowing how to handle situations that really used to baffle me. Because I was one of those where I totally reacted. I never responded thoughtfully or never paused or anything. I would just blow up and freak out and scream. You know, I was a screamer. My kids
Oh,
always.
for a long time.
Oh, my kids always said, "Mom, your tone of voice. It's your tone of voice." Well, it's because I'm a mom. Mm-hmm.
We have that mom tone. This is my serious voice.
Oh, mine was all the time. It didn't matter. I said, "This is because I smoke. It's my smoking voice." Because it was raspy and loud. And I was like, "Yep, that's my voice." So, but you know, today I just strive every day to do the next right thing and rely on my higher power for guidance and do what, you know, my sponsor and those about me who have, you know, been in this deal a lot longer than me and have had success. I just rely on those people a lot, you know, and if I have a problem, I know where to go.
What advice would you give to maybe someone that's watching that, like they're struggling and they want to get sober? Like, what advice would you have for them? Because this is a weird, right? It's a weird time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I do know that a lot of meetings have started back up. There are a lot of live meetings you can go to. And you can call the Intergroup phone number to find out what meetings are open and closed. And you can look that up online and get that info. You could probably post it.
yeah, I think it's
And
one of the other podcasts.
yeah, and I think it's aahouston.org is the website, and or aa.org. Of course, you can always get to the Houston website through them. But yeah, you know, if you can't get to a physical meeting, try a Zoom meeting. You know, just try it. If you don't like it, you know, then try to go to a live meeting and get some phone numbers. You gotta, you know, that was the hardest part for me too, was picking up that phone when I needed to. You know, the phone weighs a ton.
Yes, it does. It's funny how that works.
But you have to do it. That's the advice. Get a sponsor. And I do know there are Zoom meetings where they're specifically for getting a sponsor during
neat.
COVID. And I can get you that information at some point. It's like a flyer or something. I have it somewhere in an email. And you go, and there's old timers and newcomers, right? And the old timers talk about themselves for, 2 minutes or whatever. And then the people that need sponsors, message them in the message, and
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, so you can even if it's just a temporary thing, I know that when I've gone to places like Santa Maria or other places, they always need temporary sponsors until they can get out and you find a home group or whatever. And that's always kind of fun because you get to be like the first, push of what those you tell. You got to get a real sponsor, one that doesn't live, 40 miles away, one that you see every day because you can see it in their face.
Oh, yeah.
And even Zoom can be deceiving. So, that's my suggestion, is just get a sponsor, work the steps. And if you can't do that, just keep trying. Don't give up. Don't ever, ever, ever give up, because if you give up, then you're dead. Oh, and I was going to say one more thing, that, a big consequence I have from drinking now. After 4.5 years sober, I found out that I have an autoimmune liver disorder, which is called primary biliary cholangitis.
Really?
They used to call it primary biliary cirrhosis because they didn't catch it as quickly as they do now, and it leads to cirrhosis, and it is incurable. I take medication, which really slows the process down a lot, but if I had not quit drinking, I would have cirrhosis and be on a liver transplant list with wonderful Obamacare. So, I mean, you never know what underlying medical conditions can come from your drinking, too. And I never thought, we had superior livers, that's what we thought. That's what our cousins, that's what we always said. We have superior livers.
Well, and a lot of addicts and alcoholics, it's weird because you won't get sick all the time, right, when you're using. It's like afterwards when you're starting to like, okay, you're doing the right thing and you're healthy, right? Then all these things.
I have Hep C.
Yeah, pop up, and it's like, well, yeah, because you go to the doctor for like however long you were using. But
things like hepatitis C, they can lie dormant for years, like 20 years.
Wow, that's not fun.
Yeah, because I know a couple of people my age and older who didn't use needles for 25 years. And then 25 years later, they find out they have it.
Wow.
And that was back when the treatment was not Harvoni. It was the interferon that made you so sick. And I don't and didn't. And I just have that weird liver, what do they call it? Autoimmune.
Wow.
And I was really nervous about COVID, having an autoimmune disorder, but I don't think it's like some of those autoimmune disorders.
Because it's like it's just the liver, right? Is that the only place it is?
The bile ducts. It's just the bile ducts in my liver are being eaten by the good cells in my liver. And that's what causes that scarring, which is what cirrhosis is. So you just never know what can happen. And my shoulder, my shoulder surgery, like it's raining today. Here we are, tropical storm, 2020. The humidity alone is just, I'm reminded on a daily basis. And if I sleep on it too long on one side, oh my God, it's terrible.
So did you ever find out exactly what you do? What did you do? You like tackle someone?
I just fell.
You just fell?
I just fell. My husband came outside at 4 a.m. and he said I was just laying there, and he said, you need to get up, you need to go to bed. And he said that I told him, no, I'm just looking at the stars.
You're like, I'm fine.
And then the next time I woke up, I was in the bed, so I don't know how I got from one to the other, but I was one of those crazy people that would drive out to Katy in the dark when the meteor showers were coming, at 10 o'clock at night. Let's go, we're going. And go, try to find a spot to watch the meteor shower. And of course, we got to get more wine first, By that time, you just couldn't find a place to go, or everybody was like, no, we're going home.
But what's it been like? Because your child that's now sober, I love him. He tried getting sober before you were ever sober, right? So was that weird? Like, what was it like to kind of watch him struggle and then, like, you were sober? You know what I mean? Like, was that weird?
Horrible.
Like, you're working the steps and, like, you now know what, like, he should be doing, right? And it's like,
my thoughts were it wasn't what he should be doing, because I knew my sponsor was very, it's different for everybody. So for him, it was, I do know that having a traumatic brain injury and being a drug addict, alcoholic, is just not a good combination, because alcohol and drugs on your brain, you would not believe the amount of damage that prolonged drug abuse does to your brain. It changes the actual chemical balance in your brain, and so that's why one reason you become addicted. And there's so many other factors, and seeing your child hurting like that and not being able to fix it is just crazy. It is a crazy thing. There were times he was on the street, homeless, by choice. oh well, thank God for some sober houses that would go pick him up when he needed it and let him back in. Yep. Many, many times. And then, he has a lot of good friends out there who have taken care of him over the years. And, because when the crack dealers were knocking at our door in the middle of the night, that was it.
Yeah.
That was too scary for me. And so we had to make a decision, and it wasn't just mine. My husband had to decide, and he's not one of us. So, but that was a bad struggle for me. That was part of the PTSD, all of that stuff. But, it was my choice to drink over those things. I wasn't a great mom either when I was drinking and using with him. That was not a good parent-child relationship at all. And I'm sure he suffered from it. And then, because at one time he had 2 years sober and went out. And those great sober people from the sober houses, they came and got him. They took him back, and he'd get sober and go back out and get sober and go back out every time. By that time I was going to that other program for families. And, I was still freaked out and thought for sure, he's going to die. He's going to die, if it doesn't change. And then I learned, about willingness and about, having to just know that your willingness is something that's going to save you. My willingness isn't going to save him or you or anybody, right?
Yeah.
It's only going to save me. And, we can't have someone else's willingness. We just can't. And I was told a long time ago, when I first started getting sober, because a lot of those people knew my child. And it was really hard, and they would say, you just have to pray for the stranger. Pray for the stranger. And I'm telling you, those strangers, they showed up. They showed up because God is merciful,
Yeah.
and he will take care of us, and it says in the book right there, we trust our infinite God rather than our finite selves, and just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us, and we humbly rely on him, then we can match calamity with serenity. We want serenity. We don't want calamity. And I lived in calamity for a long time. And now I don't have to do that. There are times when I get scared, and like my daughter lives in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Well, it finally rained. So the air is clean again. They can go outside.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was like the worst air quality in like the whole world or something like that. Yeah,
It was bad.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But plus, just the idea that they might have to leave, evacuate. That was scary. That was really scary. And I have a lot of PTSD with her too, with her birth. And that was bad. So I was scared. I was scared for you. But I remembered how it worked out and how everything's good. And I remembered to say my prayers and to trust God.
Yeah, shout out to Memorial Herman and
Oh,
Memorial
yeah.
City.
Memorial Herman in 2005, really cool Memorial Herman in 2000, and
I had some really cool nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some cool ones.
I can't wait for that baby to come home.
Yeah, that's
so.
Yeah, I think that first, I can't believe it's already been a year, right? Like this whole year for him went by super fast.
Oh, I know.
And he's like a totally different person. Which is crazy. Like when we went to see him, we're just like,
well,
Who are you? Like,
He's
you're
the
so
real
different.
That is the real one. And
I'm like, it's awesome.
I can always tell because he said, I love you too. Because they would say, okay, and hang up the phone or whatever. But now it's, I love you too, or like in text, thanks for coming. It meant a lot. Saying things like that just are completely like, oh, he's back.
Yeah.
He's back.
It's pretty awesome.
He's a good person.
No, he is.
He's
For
compassionate, and he is a real down-to-earth human. And yeah, he's had a rough time of it. But you know what? That just makes you stronger.
Yeah, he thinks he skated by with being on the podcast, but he hasn't. I can travel now, mister.
Well, he did that last one remote.
Yeah. I was going to try to get him.
I will say this for Austin. He has so much more support in Austin, state-wise, like from outside entities. I'm not talking inner circle friends and stuff like that, than ever in Houston.
Yeah, he was telling us some of this, like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'll tell y'all after. I won't tell it on the show, but I can tell y'all after. But I want to thank you for having me.
No, this was fun.
Any other questions?
Any shout outs? Do you want to give any shout outs to anyone? The hubby? Anybody?
Shout out to my hubby and my daughter and of course, my wonderful child. My basically prodigal child. And, I just pray for you guys. I want you to know that. And all of my friends who are watching, I truly appreciate everything that everybody does for me and for everyone else who suffers from this disease, because it takes a village. Mm-hmm. It really does. We can't do it on our own. We know that.
Mm-hmm. Gotta ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a shout out to baby Lucas.
Yay to baby Lucas. Awesome. So just a shout out to Transformations for letting me use the space. And I do not have a small business this week. And so I actually would like people to start sending me requests for small businesses that they want me to do shout outs for. And yeah, just another big thank you for all the support that we've gotten over the last weeks. Everyone's been just so great. And with that, that's going to be all. Bye.
Thanks.